Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. You all are doing well. Hope you guys are enjoying the eclipse today, no matter where you are in the country. That I saw something. I know down here in up here in Massachusetts, it was a little disappointing. A little disappointing, but that's okay. Hey, the skies didn't open up and swallow us up, so that's a good thing. But anyhow, on to the topic, which is kids not leaving the roost and the issues that baby boomers are having with getting these kids out. Yeah, as the title, as I mentioned in the title, that there's a growing consensus of these young adults that are specifically males that are staying at home, which is making it very difficult for baby boomers to sell their homes and prolonging that, and potentially, according to the Oracle of Wall Street, going to lead to a housing abundance in the future, potentially collapsing, or actually a withdrawal of the buyers in the market, which is going to lead to a collapse of the market and a decline in sales price. So we're going to dissect this. But before we do that, it's always more fun to do this with friends. So hailing all the way across middle of the country from St. George, Utah, my friend, your friend, we all know him, Mr. Joe Eves.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
How you doing, my friend?
Oh, it's so good. I like the cheering. It makes me feel very special.
Well, you're a good person to bring on to talk about this because as we were talking a few minutes ago, you got a little clan at home.
I do, yeah.
You got a little clan at home, and some of them are a little older, and this is kind of a very hot topic. I mean, I've got one in college that is graduating in 5 weeks, and so this is something that we're both very very familiar with. Are going to be very familiar with in terms
exactly.
of old children not flying the roost. But before we get into it, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing really good. Just working away, and we didn't really see much of the eclipse where I'm at, so no one really went outside to look at it because it didn't really happen. So I mean, maybe it did, but you couldn't see it.
It was all, if Christina Smallhorn were here, she'd be like, she put her tinfoil hat on and she'd be like, yeah, it was all a hoax. It didn't really happen. It was made up in a studio somewhere. So, everything was staged. And
Yeah,
it's not,
I'm sure there's different parts of the country that see it differently for sure.
Hey, I just wanted you to know I'm representing here.
I saw that and I was very jealous when I saw that. I was like, I got to get one of those.
I've only been to Disney once, and we absolutely went to the Star Wars exhibit, and I absolutely came home with the C-3PO R2-D2 mug. So I wish I could afford to have brought on more.
But, listen, don't feel bad if in the next stream you see me have one of those, because me and my wife are going this weekend to Disneyland. So I'll go right there and see what they got.
Nice. Do it. Oh, it'll be a good time for you. I'm a little jealous. But I'll get that back there someday. I gotta fill up my collection.
Yeah, the collection.
Hard to decide, but should we dig right in?
Yeah, let's go.
Get into the meat of the matter. So I'm going to pull up the specific article that I came across that kind of got me on this whole idea. Just caught my attention. So we've got this article that by Fortune magazine, the growing crisis of the young American male could send home prices falling for years or even decades, says the Oracle of Wall Street. And I'm not going to read this thing through because I'm going to stop because there's just so many things that I want to discuss. Right. So this is chock full. So we've got Meredith Whitney, deemed the Oracle of Wall Street, was successfully called the financial crisis. Because that's how she was deemed the Oracle of Wall Street, for calling the financial crisis. Says that home prices are likely to fall substantially, and the reasons have to do with habits picked up by young guys. You have men staying single longer, and then you have what I call a growing crisis of the young American male. They're twice as likely to live at home than women. So 1 out of 5 young men live at home with their parents. And these aren't young men going to college and coming home for the holiday breaks. These are young grown men choosing to live at home. The outcome could have profound effects on the housing market, she said. She says, I think you're going to see housing prices begin a multi-year decade decline just due to supply and demand dynamics. So you've had a demand and a supply imbalance, more demand, less supply, and I think that is what's going to invert. So what that means is supply will outweigh demand, which is why she sees home prices falling for years. So I'm just going to take a pause right there, and so we can kind of digest this. And when I read this article, Joe, I first I'm like, Meredith who? So
Yeah.
I had to pull her up on I actually had to pull her up on Wikipedia, and I don't have Christina has help me out. Her husband in the background there.
Eddie, a
Eddie.
producer?
I don't have an Eddie.
You
I
don't
need
have
an
a
Eddie.
producer. You are the producer.
So for those that don't know Meredith Whitney, she's an American businesswoman, financial analysis. She's known for successfully forecasting the financial crisis of 07, 08 and was dubbed the Oracle of Wall Street. So I think that that's debatable. I think that she, made some conclusions and got, she was, most definitely recognized by some big, media industries and so forth. But I wouldn't say that she's the second coming of Wall Street.
Right.
But so, and I'm going to go back to the article in a second because I just think it kind of.
I mean, the thing is, it's like she's doing like a blanket statement, and the problem is that like with those, they're great for grabbing like attention for headlines and stuff like that, but like where like in what areas is she just saying the whole market? Like, because that can't be. Like to me, it just seems like that's such a blanket statement, because like there could be parts of the country that are slower than slow right now, and then there are other parts of the country that you can't build houses fast enough, and you can't, so for her to say, well, it's going to be this thing, I don't disagree. I do think that it is harder for young men to like be motivated to move out of the house, but I mean, a lot of it I think is on the parents more than it is on like the thing, it's like, hey,
I couldn't agree with you more.
If they're in the basement playing video games and you're like, hey, go get a job, and they don't want to, and the parents aren't actually like kicking them out, like why would they ever be incentivized to leave?
No, it's a very interesting dynamic, right? And we're kind of seeing this because I feel like a lot of it is a generational upbringing, right?
Right.
With the boomers and the boomers, they raised the Gen Xers, they raised my generation, and it was, we're kind of like the latchkey generation, right? And come and go and whatnot. And, because of that, I think our generation didn't have this, a lot of us weren't taught the skill set. A lot of Gen Xers weren't taught the skill set to really, be that steady hand.
Yeah.
I mean, I certainly lived in a household where, there was discipline and there was accountability for your actions and all the things. But that's because of that. But my house wasn't a latchkey house, right? My friends who were living in that household, they did experience that. And I think that a lot of those parents are raising kids now that, to your point, they're sitting in the basement. Like, why are they like, why aren't you okay? You've got 6 months to get your crap together.
Right.
And the free rent is out. Oh, okay. So you want to stay here? Great. What's the going market rent? $1,000? Great. I'll tell you, I'll give you a deal. I'll give you 50 cents on the dollar. I want $500 a month. Accountability.
Yeah.
But I don't know I don't think that's happening.
No, I don't think so either. And to go back to her article, like, I don't personally agree that like that there's this big housing like surplus that's coming, because even if there were, all of these like, and see, here's where it's maybe like, okay, you've got like all these hedge funds that are going to come in there and they're going to be buying communities if that's the case. Like
Right.
it's not like, oh, we're going to have this shortage of home buyers. No, like the all of these big funds are already like looking to gobble up as much rental properties as they possibly can, buying whole communities. So I would say that the bigger issue is, yeah, maybe they don't want to leave, but part of it is because of affordability. Like
Yeah,
they
no,
can't
I
afford it.
completely agree. I completely agree. And actually, the rest of the article kind of goes into, she says, the bulk of the housing is, to your point, the bulk of the housing is owned by people and households over the age of 40. And she said household formations are the lowest that we've seen in more than a century, which is true. It's on a decline, which translates into a demand problem. I'm going to say there that just because we've got what's defining household formations? You're talking about, a couple starting a family, and I tried to find, research on this, and the research on the household formations is decreasing, but you have like a ginormous increase in single women, single
Right.
professionals buying homes. The article goes on to say that yet many experts have predicted, and this is not her, but this is just the commentary, the folks that writing the article there in Fortune. She says they said yet many experts have predicted the home prices will only continue to go up from here. Mortgage rates reached a 2-decade high last year, and people were still buying homes. And because there simply aren't enough. Demand outweighs supply, keeping home prices up. Whitney, however, is calling it differently as shifts within the housing world and apparently young male adults occur. However, this last line is the icing on the cake, Joe. It's not clear what data she is referring to here or in the information above.
So it's so kind of like it goes back to like how she became the oracle. Maybe she just said something like offhand and they're like, oh, she called it. And it's like, okay, she's doing the same thing here with no data to pull from, because
so Joe,
that's
hey,
the issue.
Did you know there's an eclipse on April 8th of 2024?
Yes.
I'm the oracle of astronomy.
Yeah. You figured it out.
I figured it out.
But I didn't see it. You know what I mean? But I think that's the issue, right? The issue is
Yeah.
that they're going off of data. Yes, maybe she has a son that's in the basement that she can't get out of the house, and so she's like, "That's it. I'm going to do this." But ultimately, and it looks like David, hey David, it looks like he's saying maybe they're live streamers and making a ton of money. Listen, that is a real job, and if they're making money, they're going to be buying houses.
Absolutely.
It's not that they're going to live in their mom's basement.
Right.
Like maybe they move their mom in with them, but the thing is that I would be very, very skeptical of anything saying that the house, unless something major happens that where home prices like fall so much. And if there's so much pent up buyer demand right now. Like people are buying right now, and like interest rates are at super high, prices are super high. So if it does go down, it's like, well, they'll just sell and buy another house and get it, a better deal.
Yep.
So
100%.
So I just don't understand where she's getting that from. And I love the little disclaimer last sentence that's on there. That's like, we don't really know where she's getting her information from.
But we're just because it makes an headline and headlines sell, and that's the name of the game. I mean, I think that there was an article that I read about her too that she back in, oh gosh, it was several years ago. She started talking about this the silver tsunami, right? With the baby boomers, and it was absolutely coming, and this is going to be a thing, and it was going to be a tidal wave of all these millions of homes as people get into retirement and all that.
Didn't happen.
Dry as a bone.
Yeah.
There's no tsunami. Dry as a bone. Like and the reason is like I was reading about this the other day, that the retirement age that they all predicted that these people should be retiring, and then based on previous, based on history, this is when they typically retire, and this is what they typically do when they retire. They typically sell their house. They go into 55 plus, or they go down to Florida. That's what they've done in the past, but that's not what they're doing now.
No,
Modern medicine, they're living longer. There was an article that I pulled up yeah, check this out, Joe. I mean, this is like, I thought this was interesting. It makes me think that by the time, I mean, I'm inching closer, but I'm gonna be 90 before I retire, for crying out loud. This article was another one about Fortune. More boomers are staying in their jobs instead of retiring. They're working longer hours and making more money. This is from the Pew Research data. And they talk about that, almost 20% of Americans ages 65 and older were employed this year, according to a new report, Pew Research Center. That's nearly double the share of those who were working 35 years ago.
Right.
So 35 years ago, then yeah, we probably would have had, if we had the same data, right? But that's not now. It's a combination of, they're able to work so they can, they make more money so they can, and unfortunately with with inflation,
Yeah,
a lot of these people
they may have to work.
They
may have to work. Exactly. It's interesting because I know some guys, they retired, did really well, retired, and then all of a sudden they're back working. And I'm like, why are you working? And they're like, I'm bored. I'm bored out of my mind. Like, I've done all the vacationing I can do. I've done all the golfing I want to do. And I am absolutely bored. And so I'm working and they're picky on the projects that they do and stuff. But like, I thought it was very interesting that they go back to working, which is falls in line exactly with what that's saying, is that they're living longer, they're healthier, and they've done the whole, I've retired and a month or two, and then they're like, I can't keep doing this.
Or
And then
I have more to give.
Yeah. And then I know some other people that are like, they thought they could retire, but like, because of inflation, everything costs so much more money that now they're like, I have to work. So they're going to work at the local grocery store or whatever, because they got to supplement their income from their retirement.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Absolutely. I think that the one thing that she said in that article was, I think it was this article, it might have been another article, that she said that, yeah, it was this article that she said that these young men they aren't young men going to college and coming home from holiday breaks. They're young grown men choosing to live at home, which is a really sugar-coated way of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But, on the heels of that, it's been a conversation in a lot of my live streams about, mentioned like the fact that the one thing that this industry needs for, to help with the housing crisis, help with employment, help with the cost of goods, and the cost of labor, is we need more of these kids going into labor professions. And, it was so many years that, you graduate high school, which college are you going to?
Right.
And if you weren't going to college, you were less than. You were not, you were going to make a lesser job, and you weren't going to make as much money, and so on and so forth. And I've been saying that, forget all the we're not going to get into politics, but like to get, all the incentives or the White House is offering and all these, rebates and everything. Offer some rebates to these young people coming out of high school and help subsidize their education to be a welder, to be a plumber.
Yeah.
Compensate them for tools and give them an incentive to get back into the trades. And I saw this article that I thought was interesting about that, is that, and it says Gen Z are increasing. This was like I was like, oh, this is encouraging, right?
Yeah.
Gen Z are increasingly choosing trade schools over college to become welders and carpenters because it's a straight path to a 6-figure income. And it talks about the fact that that's exactly what they're doing, is that, they're talking about how these kids are choosing these paths because of the fact that they've realized that the pay scale is gone through the roof,
Yeah.
and they can make a lot more money, you
And they
know?
can make it faster. My nephew, he did exactly this, is he did kind of a trade school, like a technologies trade school, and he did it for just a little while, and then he realized, hey, if all I need to do is I need to go and apprentice under a plumber. And so he did an apprenticeship for like a year, 2 years. I can't remember. There's a certain amount of hours and all this stuff. And then you have to go through and get your schooling and basically your certifications and everything. But he did that. And then he started his own plumbing company where he just goes in and does installs at these apartment complexes, and he's making like 6 figures a year, and he's got a team now that helps him, and they're doing well. So his company has blown up because he learned a trade. And the
That's
thing was
awesome.
is that he was like, this is like a great place for like me. I'm interested in this stuff. But he did it because he saw that one, he wouldn't have any debt when he got going, because there was no school fees, as it were. He just paid as he went, because the trade school, there was like scholarships and a couple other things, exactly like to your point of, if we're going to do incentives and do those types of things, I agree with you that that's where they should go, because we're going to need plumbers, electricians, HVAC specialists, like all of these things that are the trade labors that we need to continue moving on. Yeah, you might be able to get some people that are like, okay, we've got, like a journeyman electrician, that they're going to make a lot more money than maybe an entry level. But the thing is that they're not starting upside down,
Right.
where
Right.
where in college, and some of the things you have to do it because that's the way it's built. But like, for someone that wants to make a good income and have opportunity, that's a great way to do it. And all that does is help you move right into home ownership, which is then how you can start to build wealth.
100%. And it's a trickle down effect. It's a trickle down effect in the sense that, now these kids, yes, they're it's, they're helping themselves and putting themselves in a better position, but now you have these builders that can build at a greater scale. And
Yep.
now we can, and the second component is that the government needs to incentivize these builders to build affordable housing,
Right.
right? If you have a 2-acre lot or a 1-acre lot, instead of, putting on an apartment complex or like a quad condo, townhome
Hmm.
situation where you can have literally 4 families, they make way more money, and it's a lot easier path of approval, permits and permitting and all this, if they just build this ginormous house,
Yeah.
a luxury property. And that's just wrong.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, I don't know if it's wrong, but it just doesn't help the
See,
problem.
and it's kind of backwards where we're at. So like they will build a single family home on an acre or whatever, or or half acre or whatever. But trying to get the city to do multifamily zoning is next to impossible here. And
Yep.
it's like, well, wait a second, like we could offer homes at a way cheaper price if we could get this multifamily zoning. But because we don't, the patches that do allow that, they're ridiculously expensive, because there's only a few areas that you can get that kind of zoning. And so it's like creates this, instead of it being, hey, this is affordable housing because it's multifamily, it's like, oh, this is a great investment property because they're very few, so someone comes in and buys a 16 plex or whatever, because there's only so many areas where you can do that.
Right.
Really,
Right.
really hard to get multifamily zoned here.
Yeah, same. I think it's that way. I mean, there's obviously certain states in the country, right? You hear
Yeah.
about California just being a total bear, and it's not that much different. I mean, it's very very similar here. You
And it's
know,
like,
it,
why wouldn't you do that? Give some incentives or some discounts on permitting or whatever, and allow for that zoning, and just have really good CCNRs and an HOA, and
yep.
you're not going to have like like beat up properties or, like that kind of stuff. Or even if you did it, like work out something with the state, like what you're saying, so you could get some subsidized housing.
Yep.
And they can then, oh, okay, we can afford up to this much because this is what we make, and they get a subsidy. Like it's common sense, but people, it's just like, why can't we do this?
You know why? I'll tell you why. You ready? Common sense is not that common. Yoda told me that.
I agree with you on that.
That's a little Yoda for you.
Yeah.
Now, you know what? And if I'm gonna go off on a tangent on this, not on a tangent, but just get on a soapbox or whatever. I mean, we won't get into like the commission discussion. I think it's just been beat to death on social media and YouTube and
right.
And everywhere. However, that has dominated the news.
Right.
And we've got election year coming. So there's like all these things about, crisis and problems, and let's blame this person and let's blame that person. Let's blame this industry, blame. And there's, if we put as much effort into chasing people, accusing people, beating people down, all this negativity, put more effort into actually solving the problem. My mother, the way I taught my kids, right? When they would come to me with a problem when they were little, I used to tell them, I said, this is not happening, or that, she did it. I have two girls. She did this to me, or whatever. And, I don't like this. And I would say, wait a minute, hold on. Okay. You have an issue. You want to that's fine. But what do you propose I do about it?
Yeah.
Don't come to me with a problem unless you propose a solution. Now, I may not go along with that solution, but at least it caused you to think about it. And I feel like, don't you agree? Like there's so many like things like this is wrong and this is going to crash.
Oh, yeah.
And all these things, but there's like not enough energy. It's like completely lopsided that there's not enough energy spent on the actual. So, I'm not a politician. I'm not a genius. I'm not that smart. I'm not as smart. How is it that I can sit here and have a conversation with you and be like, okay, so we need to incentivize builders, and we need to loosen restrictions locally to start building, and that will create more housing, and more people will be able to get into homes, which will ease things, which will bring prices down and get people into homes and out from underneath landlords. How is it that we can have this conversation, but people that are way smarter than us, we don't hear about it? I don't know.
I think the biggest thing is that it really comes down to intention. And like, if you really intend to fix something, like, I don't know on that because I'm not a politician. I haven't been in any of that, but I've been in plenty of city council meetings, plenty of planning commission meetings because we do development. And the thing that I can see is that for the most part, most of those people that are on those boards are morons, and they don't understand anything about the project. All they do is get a 30,000 foot view of like what we're talking about. And then they're worried about the color of the stucco. And you're like, you've missed like everything, and you're hung up on this. Like it's insane to me that so like the issue is that we have elected officials that they're not good. They're not certified. They don't understand this. And so what do? They go and hire consultants, right? Because they want to have that. But then they get these consultants that are from out of state. And so the consultants don't have any idea of like any of our issues that we deal with. And so I'm doing this process right now. And this is why I can tell you it took a year to get a building permit, because the city had a specific idea that they got from these consultants that live in Denver. And I'm like, you guys like realize none of this that you're asking for makes any sense. So the issue is the things that make sense to us, and because we're in it every day, we see it every day, they're not, and they have no clue how to handle it. And
they don't ask.
No. And that's the difference is it's like, well, okay, can you give me a reason why? And then the other problem with this is that you might get one person that agrees with you, but you've got a whole council that now you have to get to agree, and they may not like each other. And so it doesn't have anything to do with the project. It has to do with well, you didn't approve my last thing, so I'm going to stick it to you.
It's total kindergarten crap.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and so what do they do? Like there's one lady in St. George that has gotten the city in lawsuits because she opens her mouth and says stupid stuff because she just doesn't understand. And so it's like you cost the city more than like anything, and yet she's protected.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. So that's where I'm like, you almost have to like, it's coming from the top down and you almost have to go from the bottom up and say, look, we're in the trenches. We see the needs. Now we need to get somebody that understands what we're talking about. And that's as far as it goes. But we don't get that. And so what do we deal with? Politics and bureaucracy. They have to do these side deals. They have to do all these other things, and it takes forever. And so that's why we're in the mess that we're in. So we have no solutions like what you're saying. Yep. We only have problems.
Well, and to make matters worse, that's where people are relying to all that disconnects, like the telephone game, that disconnect between those two lines, where the people that at the top that are making the decisions, that are calling all the shots, and the people maybe that are at the bottom, the little guys that actually are in the trenches, dig in the trenches, right? These are the guys that are spewing all of these articles. Like,
right.
Where in this article, and now I'm like, this is like La La Land, like this is never going to happen in media, right? But she's saying, okay, this is the problem with these. Well, then great. How do we get these young men out of the basement?
What's the solution?
What's the solution? How do we get these guys out of the basement? How do we get if they're not going to college, then they are going into trades, because they're just, are they waiting for mom and dad to die so they can leave them the house? I
mean, that could very well be what it is, like they could just say, you know what, I'm going to do that because eventually they're going to die anyways. The other thing that, like, we are in a unique time. Like, we're in such a unique time that you can make money doing almost anything.
It's amazing.
And you don't have to be in a specific location because of the internet, because of everything that we have. Like, the world is so much smaller. So if you put a little bit of effort, you can make money at stuff. So that's not the issue. The opportunity is bigger than it's ever been. It comes down to like motivation.
Yeah.
And the parents, they've got to put their foot down and say, like what you said, hey, you're out, or you got to start paying rent. It's better if they say they're out, because who knows if they'll follow through with actually collecting rent,
Yeah. And you know what? And it's all like life lesson stuff too. I mean, so my older daughter is she's a Bachelor of Fine Arts. She's an illustration major. And so going into the art field, I mean, she was doodling when she was in elementary school, right? She just that's, ever since she could pick up a pencil, right? This is her passion. This is the thing that she got in trouble with. Her teachers would write me notes, Caitlin's not paying attention in class. She's got to stop doodling. It's like, oh, if you could see her now, she just won a book deal. She's illustrating a children's book when she graduates, awesome. And they're going to fly her to Chicago and promote the book and all the things. Like, the doors are starting to open because she worked at it. And when she was going through that process in college, in high school, trying to figure out what's the next step, we had the discussion, and I told her, I says, I 100% want my kids to follow their passions, but I also want them to accept everything that comes with it.
Right.
I says, it is not an easy road. You're going to have to work your tail off. It's not a cut and dry, get an engineering degree and get an engineering job. Yeah. It's not the way it works. But if you love it and you're committed, you're going to put that extra effort in, and you need to put in the work ethic. You need to put in that time. You need to be patient. You need to learn, and you need to be willing to sacrifice. And I told her, I says, what is more important to you? I says, is it more important for you to have really nice cars and a big house and financial security, or maybe an older car and a smaller house, but be doing something that you absolutely love?
Right.
It's like, Mom, I want to do what I love. I said, then you go into it with the expectation. And I don't think that enough parents are having that conversation. It's like, okay, so you want to do this thing, but you want the brand new car. So you're going to go get the car payment for $700 a month, but now you don't have enough money to pay for a housing payment. I have a client that has that exact
Yeah.
scenario where they want to sell their house, right? It's an in-law, and they actually moved into the in-law to allow her child and family and kids to reside temporarily. 2 years later, and they told him, like, you've got to, we're doing this to help you, whatever, save. Joe, they didn't save.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
new stuff everywhere and multiple cars, and now they're like, okay, no, this is no, and they're putting their foot down. But that's and I'm not judging them by no
Right.
means, but it's like the fact of the matter is there was some sort of disconnect with the kids, that it's like, no, you have to, there's sacrifice.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people, they because of the internet, because of accessibility with everything, like we don't have any patience. We can get everything now.
Yep.
And so it's different like with home ownership. Back in the day, you worked, you saved till you had your 20% down, and then you could then afford, to get a home. And it was kind of a meager home. Now people want to skip that step and they want the big house automatically. They want the cars because they see that all on social media. They see that like, oh, that's what I should be getting. But what they don't see is like the people that actually have that. Most of this stuff online is fake anyways, where they'll rent the car for the day and
Absolutely.
they'll do all this stuff. It's all staged, or a lot of it is. Not saying that people can't make a lot of money. They totally can. But the difference is that those people are like, they start out small, they save, they're smart with their money, they use it to leverage. And the hard thing is that when you have someone that stays with you or lives with you that's supposedly doing it to save money, you have to be very clear with them to say, look, if this is really what you're going to do, like, pay me rent or whatever. And then when they're done, you can always give that money back to them. That's one of the things that I'm doing with my kids is like, they're coming here. I'm like, hey, you're going to pay rent. They don't know that when they leave, I'm going to give them that money. Like,
Hopefully they don't watch this live stream.
Yeah, well, they won't.
Neither will my kids.
but the thing is that it is something that, like,
that's a great idea, Joe. I'm going to steal that idea, actually.
Yeah, because then they've committed that money, but I don't need it. It's not for me. It's just, okay, hey, you saved for 6 months. Here's 6 months of what you would have paid.
Right.
And that right there goes, I think, a long way of helping them get into something. I'm not opposed to helping my kids get into home ownership, but they've got to be responsible enough to actually pay for it.
I think there's a muscle there that needs to be developed, that
Right.
You're hurting the kid by helping them, right? Like, it's,
you're holding them back, actually.
You totally are holding them back. Like, to your point about, young, the millennials wanting to get into, I mean, the reality of it is that a lot of these millennials are graduating college and they're making more money than their parents.
Yep.
Like, it's crazy. The amount of money that they're going into their first job because they are who they are. They're young. They have this knowledge, updated knowledge, and their, employers are willing to pay. So now they're flush with cash and they're like, I don't want a starter home.
Yeah.
I don't want a condo. I want what my parents have.
Yep.
I want that. And wouldn't it have been nice if I had that path? I mean, my husband at the time, we rented 300 square foot apartment, right?
Yep.
Tiny little, like, living room, kitchen thing, one bedroom.
Our first home was like 450 square feet.
Tiny, right? Like, it was like, but that was like a step up from living at home.
Right.
It was like, woohoo, I got my own place. And then when we found our first condo, it was a townhouse, 3 levels.
You're like, oh,
1,100 square feet.
time.
I was like, whoa, this is like, but it was $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like double what we were paying for rent, more than double. It was scary, but we bought it. We did some renovations, installed hardwood floors. We spruced it up. 5 years later, sold it, put the down payment on the house that I'm in now, which was a fixer-upper.
Yeah.
And had shag carpeting and ugly vinyl and rose printed wallpaper and just like it was not, but it was solid. It was solid, and it had the makings of something nice.
Yeah.
And we said, you know what, that's okay. We get our foot in the door. Fast forward now, it's been 24 years since been in this house, and the reality of it is that process of going through all those steps has taught me immense lessons in saving and budgeting and patience. And so if somebody had handed me or 200 grand, or if I just gone right to the house that I'm in now, I would be ill equipped.
Yeah. You wouldn't appreciate it.
I would not appreciate it. And I appreciate everything about this. Well, almost everything. Wish I had a big master bath, but
the thing is, I think that's the point, right? Is that getting people to take those steps and have the initiative, and when you do, there's something about when you work for something, you take care of it better because you've earned it.
Right.
When something's given to you, you put very little value on it, and that's the thing that's super hard to get across to people. And I have this conversation all the time with clients and their kids, because they're like, I really want my kids to get something that I never had. And I'm like, yeah, but if you get them into this in 5 years, they're going to be able to afford more than what you can. Right. And this is just it's that stepping stone. And they're like, well, but we could get them into it right now. I'm like, okay, but you ever heard the term, house poor? Like, yeah, you might be able to make your payments, but that's going to put a ton of stress on the kids, the relationship, like everything. So like there's baby steps. And the thing is that understanding appreciation, understanding like when to buy, where to buy, those kind of things, that puts you in so much better of a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why parents are, a little bit protective and say, well, there's nothing out there that's affordable, so I'm going to let Johnny stay in the basement. But Johnny is showing no ambition.
Right.
That's the problem that we're running into. But it's not, I don't think it's like this pandemic, like the article makes it sound like. I think that, yes, there's something there, that there is something like that. But I also think that there's so many young people that are so smart, and that they're picking up on skill sets and doing things that allow them to move in there. They just need someone to help hold their hand so they don't make a bonehead decision.
100%. I mean, you have like that article mentioned with all those, Gen Zers that are going into the trades. That's a whole additional group of buyers,
right,
that may not have existed before. And those people are now, you add on the millennials that are already in that home buying rate, the millennials that are a lot of them already purchased their home and they're thinking about selling it, maybe getting something, maybe they bought something a little bit more on the conservative side, and now they've got kids and they want to get something a little bit bigger, or maybe they're getting transferred or something like that to a nicer job or whatnot. But behind those millennials, you've got this group of buyers. I mean, I don't know, Joe. I'm not an expert. I'm not a financial genius. But if you have 10 people that want to buy one widget, doesn't that widget get a little bit more expensive?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have knocking at your door. You're like, I want to buy that pen. And then there was 5 more people, 10 more people, 15 more people behind them that wants to buy this pen. I'd be like, okay, so this pen's $25.
Yeah, I know I said 5, but now it's 25.
25. And maybe 5 of those people be like, I'm out, that's too expensive. But then the 5 behind them be like, you know what? I have been trying to buy a pen for like a year.
Right.
Fine. I'll give you $25. Well,
right.
then I'll give you 26. I'll give you 20. Like, it doesn't make it that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get the interest rates. When I bought my house, it was 8%.
Right. And the thing is that people, like, especially like the millennials, they were spoiled because interest rates hit that 3%, right? Right as they made, like, they were coming into the market to buy. So they're buying. So they do have like a leg up on Gen Xers because of the fact that they were able to get into a home for way cheaper interest rate than, like you and I got into a home for.
Right.
But
Right.
the thing is that they got conditioned that they should get 100 grand in appreciation every year, and that interest rates are 6%. That's 7%. That's crazy. It's like, no, like when I got into my home, it was like 6.5%. And I was ecstatic that I was able to get into a home,
Right.
and so the difference was prices weren't as expensive, right? So,
Yes.
but we also didn't have the inflation that we have. So, I mean, there's trade-offs on everything, but ultimately the issue I feel like is we will always, unless there's something crazy, like I said, I feel like we'll always have limited supply. And
Yeah, there's with the growth of population in this country, there is I just don't see how we can I mean, you have like you and I, if we were to sell our house and buy another, it's a negative, it's a neutral impact on the market,
right.
right? We're giving, we're taking. It's a neutral impact. You have buyers that are coming in, it's a negative impact. So the only way to offset that negative impact is to introduce brand new housing. That's the
Yep.
only
New
way.
inventory.
And there is just no way for builders to build as fast based on the current conditions, the current climate. There's not enough to build as fast as these people that are new coming into the
Well,
market.
and they're not incentivized either because,
No,
a lot of them go with hard money, right? So they'll do a hard money loan, which is, like they're doing 2 points and 12% here. So that's a lot of money to borrow, like a lot of interest to borrow money to build a house.
right.
And then it's like, okay, how much is this house actually going to be by the time everything is done? And they build these spec houses, and if it sits for 6 months, I'm paying 6 months of interest at this, so like there's right now they're not super incentivized to even build, because so what that does is exactly what you said, that there's no inventory because there's nothing being injected into the market that's new, because the builders, the ones that normally would build, are not incentivized, because they're like, dude, I made like last year I made 50,000 a house or $100,000 a house, and now I'm going to make 20 grand a house. I'll wait. I'm not
Right.
interested in that. And so all that does is just create more demand, and the prices will stay high. Interest rates could stay high. If interest rates drop low, then prices will just shoot through the roof.
Yeah, I think I was so last week, I think it was last week I talked about that Barbara Corcoran article,
Mhm.
when she went live on Fox Business and went toe to toe with, I don't watch Fox Business that much, but went toe
Yeah,
to
I don't
toe
either.
with, whatever the guy's name is, but he was like baiting her, you know what I mean? He was like
Mhm.
really trying to bait her and be like, and she was just like, yeah, I didn't say that. So I'm like, yeah, you go, Barbara. And but she's like, she says, honestly, she says, and she's not even in real estate anymore, right? So
Right.
she's like, the biggest advice I can give any buyer right now is buy now.
Yeah.
If you're in a position, because the fact of the matter is if the rates go down, which everything that we've been hearing, it's not a matter
It
of if,
could.
it's
It's
a
a
matter of when.
possibility.
It's
Yep.
always a possibility, right? Is it a possibility that they could go up? It's always a possibility. But
Right.
as everything, all those people that are way smarter than we are, that do all their financial analysis and predictions, watch the bond market and whatnot, um, they're all saying the same thing, in that the rates are going to dip by the end of the year, and as soon as they reach that magic number, she's saying it's like 6%.
That's what I
I
think too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like all of a sudden it's gonna be a light switch.
Yep.
And you're gonna be like, okay, I want to buy now. And what's gonna happen? Shoop. Now this pen is selling for $50.
Right.
So that the guy that said, I'm not paying 25 bucks for that, I'm gonna wait for it to go drop down to 50 cents.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you can there's no way you could get $25 for that pen. It's just that's ridiculous. Now it's worth 50 bucks. And you're kicking yourself because you're like,
And
I
you
was
have a
in a
line of people
position
that
to,
wanna
and I
buy it.
decided not to, you
Yeah.
know?
And you have a line of people that wanna buy that at $50.
Yep. And that's what I think is gonna happen. I think there's gonna be, I think there's gonna be a lot of smart people that, hopefully they're talking to good agents. A little side note, anybody watching this live stream, if you don't have an agent, if you're working with an agent that hasn't been referred to you, or if you're not getting good information from them, and you need to be connected to a good agent who knows all of this stuff, who will absolutely work and represent you the proper way and make sure that you are making a good decision, fill out the link below. I'll get you in touch. I know people all over the country, including Mr. Joey's out in St. George, Utah. So fill out the link and I'll get back to you. But back to the show. But I think that if they get good advice, like, and make sure they're doing the right things, I think there's going to be a lot of happy people.
Right.
That are like, I'm so glad I got my foot in the door.
Right. If they make the decision now, if they can do it and it doesn't stress them out and they're able to do it, you should do it. And it's not because it's like, oh, do it now because interest rates may go down. Like it's do it now because you may not be able to afford a house later.
And don't buy because you don't buy with the contingency that rates are going to go down.
Right.
That's a huge thing. Like, oh, it's a little stretched now, but the rates are supposed to go down a percentage. No, you make believe that this is the rate that it's going to be forever.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford it, then you shouldn't do it. And the other thing that I wanted to mention when you were talking, Joe, about, expectations and things like that, with this kid that's in the basement that won't move out of the boomer's house and all that, I feel like there's got to be, maybe it's on our responsibility. A lot of it, I think, is on our responsibility as agents, to talk some sense into these kids, like not talking to them like, you're a whippersnapper, that kind of thing, but just educate them on the value of this is a 2-bedroom house. And I know you want a 4-bedroom, unless they have like a gaggle of kids or something like that. But it's like, it's okay to get in something for the next 5 to 7 years.
Right.
It doesn't have to be your forever house. It's okay that it doesn't have hardwood floors. It's okay that it doesn't have a big lot. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's good enough, because the reality of it is it's still going to gain equity.
Well, and not only that, but like I tell people this all the time, like use it as a stepping stone.
Yes.
And the thing is I have a nephew that he was going to school and there was a townhome. I'm like, you guys should buy this. And he's like, no. It's like $90,000. I'm like, this is a crazy good deal. Buy it. And they're like, well, it needs work and this and that. I'm like, it's okay. You can figure that stuff out, do it. So I'm like, you can sell this in 5 years. And so they bought it. And then he called me, I don't know, like a year ago. And he was like, hey, I'm thinking of selling my house. We're thinking about trading up and getting another house. I'm like, all right, what are you looking for? And so he tells me, and I'm like, I knew right where there's a new construction. It was going to work perfectly for him. I'm like, okay, if you can keep your house and let's get you this other house. And he was like, I don't know if I could do that because of the down payment. I'm like, do the numbers, see if you can. He couldn't because of, a few things with some school debt and stuff, but he ended up graduating. He got his stuff done and they rolled. So they sold the house that they bought for $90,000. They sold it for like $189,000. And so they were able to take
double the money.
They were able to take the money that they made and roll that into their new house, and their payment was exactly the same.
Oh,
so they got the same payment, but they got a brand new house. It was a 4-bedroom, 2.5 house on quarter acre. And the thing is that he was like, I am so glad that you told me to buy this when you did. We weren't going to. We were just going to rent, but I was able to pay off my student loans and get into this home for, I think it was like $100 more a month or whatever for his payment. But he was just like, there's no way we would have been able to afford this house had we not had this other house. So right. I agree 100% that it's like, it may not be your forever home, but look at it as an investment and a stepping stone for you to get there. And I told him on this one, I'm like, this isn't his forever home either. I said, but he's making more money now. So I'm like, hey, get ready. You could probably keep this one as a rental when you're ready to step up to the next one and just do a HELOC and use that for your down payment.
That's where the money is right there.
Yeah,
that is where the money is.
Gosh, that's a great idea. So
they're
already planning on that, but he's like, oh, I got like 10 years before I even need to do that. I'm like, yeah, it'll be a way different market then, but he's locked in now, and he would never have gotten that had he not done exactly what you're talking about, which is, yeah, you might have to sacrifice a little and not get exactly what you want, but in the end, it'll actually be better for you.
Yeah. So I wish So, and that's the thing is like, when it comes to, I mean, I get the fact that there's, the affordability crisis is not a hoax. Like
No, it's a real thing.
that's a real thing. However, I do think it's um, exasperated by those, desires.
Right.
It's like, oh, there's nothing on the market that's affordable. Well, what's affordable? Like, what does that mean? There's nothing on the market. There could be, may not be exactly what you're
They're
looking
just
for.
picky, and
They're
they
just
don't want it,
picky.
and they don't want to settle for
They
something.
don't want to settle. And I think that that's not the answer. That's not the answer, right, to the affordability
Right.
crisis. That's apps. However, I do feel like that, like, is the fuel to the fire,
Right.
and that it can help a lot of people that potentially. I mean, it's legitimate that a lot of people that maybe they can't find exactly what they're looking for, but it's one of those things that it's like, you gotta make your world a little bit bigger, think outside the box, have those tough conversations with your 20 something kid,
Yeah.
and do that. And if you're on the selling side, you know, if you're going to be there and it's in a situation where maybe the cards aren't aligning, maybe you have the kid that get out, whatever, work on the house,
Yeah.
put some money in the house, because all it's going to do is increase value. That's all you're going to do, is increase that value over time. But I don't know. Time will tell. I think the rubber's going to meet the road for
Yeah.
me in a couple months when my daughter graduates college and now she's home. Although she does have her beau that
Mhm.
she met in marching band.
Yeah,
They
that's
were,
awesome. I'm
they were
dealing with the same thing. My daughter
really.
and her husband, yep, they're coming and staying for the summer because they can't find anything. And I'm like, you can't stay in my Airbnb because I'm renting it out. I'm like,
Dad.
they're there now, and I'm like, don't get comfortable. Like this was just while you're in, like this transition, but you've got to move out. And so, but the thing is that if you sit down and you have a plan, you can work stuff out.
Yep. 100%. 100%. It doesn't have to be what the Oracle on
I don't think it's going to be that.
or of a silver tsunami, for crying out loud. Like,
Yeah. Where's that at?
that myth was busted. That myth was busted, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, it's just, and it's not, I think what's important is that, you're listening to this live stream after the fact. Like, this is not just Joe and Jen saying, "Oh, it's never going to happen. Oh, they're real estate agents. They're just going to say anything." It's like, no, dude, this is like based on actual data.
Yeah.
Like, as opposed to some articles that say that, oh, well, this is the thing, but nothing's been confirmed.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's to grab headlines. And if you look at any of the other trends, any of the other data, and you can go to a lot of different sources where that data is shared, but at the end of the day, like people are they're not selling. So if you're not selling, but you have people coming into the market that are looking to buy, just like with your analogy, that pen is going to be more expensive. The other thing that I noticed, and I don't know if that's happening where you're at, but here, people that have bought, rather than buying, they're actually renovating their houses, and they're making
Mm.
them nicer because they're like, you know what, I'm not gonna sell. So the kitchen, I didn't really like the countertops. I'm changing it. I'm gonna do it because I've got great equity. So
Yep.
I'm gonna pull a little bit of money out of my house and I'm gonna upgrade it.
Yep. I've done a couple videos based exactly on that, and doing the right things though. Like, if the intention is to
Yeah,
stay
increase
in
value.
there, then, and not sell, and you're like, you know what, this may not increase my value, but it makes me happy, then that's a different story. But if
Right,
your intention is to be like, okay, we're just biding time and we want to make sure that we do the things that actually add the value,
right.
you do have to, make sure to research that, because there are certain things like, there was a property that I had a client call me on just before the weekend, and it's in a community that sells very, very quickly, and this place has been on the market for 3 weeks, going on
Mhm.
almost, and it's like, what's going on? Well, as soon as I looked at the photos, I found out
It's
they
too custom.
had taken the kitchen and ripped out all the kitchen cabinets on the top and replaced it with this. I mean, it looked aesthetically, it looked like it was out of a magazine,
Mhm.
but it was like, white shelves, white subway tile,
Yeah, it's not
all
functional.
the plates were all like multicolored. I mean, it aesthetically was gorgeous. Completely impractical.
Yeah.
Completely impractical. And guess what? You just took your audience from here to here.
Yep.
And that's not the kind of thing you want to do. It's like if you have older countertops or you have whatever, it's like, you know what, do your research, find out what's what's current in your area. Like, what is the expectation? You know what I mean? Like, what is everybody in
And
your
what's
neighborhood doing?
desirable? Like, you could even upgrade some stuff that's like, hey, if this had this, it would sell quicker.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Well, Joe, this has been fun.
It has.
This
been
has
awesome.
been fun. And I will
Always
say
nice
that,
chatting with you.
yeah, I mean, we could probably chat for another hour. Start talking about Star Wars, forget about it.
Oh man, don't get me started.
Well, for anybody watching, if you are looking in the Utah area, so St. George or anywhere in Utah, and you want, I know Joe, you know everybody over there. So this is Joe. This is how you can. Is this the best way people to find you?
Sure.
You get a form in there. You can fill it out. Reach
Yep.
out to Joe. He's a nice guy. He's a great guy. Super, super, super smart, and he will absolutely give you the straight deal and take good care of you. So,
well, thanks, Jen. It's been awesome. Always love chatting with you. You've got great insight, and appreciate you having me on.
Likewise. So, you know what we do? This is what I do, Joe. You know what's coming next.
You got a little outro music.
You know what's coming next.
I'm on edge, waiting to hear what it is.
Get your groove on. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, joining us. Have a wonderful Monday. Hope you got the eclipse. And stay tuned for next week for another live stream Monday, 4 p.m. Thanks so much, Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you.
We'll see you later.
Hands it out, Joe.